Thank you.
I am calling this January 23rd, 2023, regular meeting of the Memphis RE6 School Board to order. The time is 7:03. Roll call, please.
Pam Coppinger,
Here.
Victor Figueroa,
Here.
Katie Cahill Wolfe here, Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Here,
Tim Hunter.
Present.
present.
Hey, we're all here. We've got a quorum. Would everyone rise and join in the pledge of allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank everyone for being here tonight. We actually have people in the room. Emily, we're grateful that you could join us electronically. That's great.
Thanks for the allowance.
Keith, we need you to get the got it screen off of Emily's face so we can see her. If you can. All right. Let me remind everyone that this is thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public rather than a meeting with the public. There are two times during the meeting for public participation. The first is at the beginning of the meeting to hear comments regarding specific agenda items. The second is at the end of the meeting when general comments relating to school issues will be heard. Do we have anyone who signed up? No. No, okay. All right. Oops. All right, we have approval of agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second that.
Yeah, got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All right, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Wolfe,
Aye.
Pam Coppinger,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the December 12, 2022 regular school board meeting. Any discussion? Okay, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Wolfe.
Aye.
Pam Coppinger,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. And we do not have anybody signed up for public participation. So district accountability report.
We did not meet last month, so I have nothing to report.
Okay,
We'll be
that's
meeting
fair since it
tomorrow.
was Christmas. Oh, okay, all right. All right, okay, board reports. Sorry, my pen, I've got like 3-4 pieces up here. I'll have to figure out how to put that together later. We did have an LRC meeting a week ago Friday. We have our second one this Friday. There's lots of activity. I'll report out here. Sorry, I should type this up to give it to you, but anyway. We met I wanted to bring out a couple of points on the meeting. Number one, that the LRC meetings are open to any CASB member who wants to attend. You just can't vote. But if anyone ever wants to sit in on those discussions, they're always the first and the third. Wait, let me get the dates right. Second and fourth Fridays, and they're, of course, in the middle of the day. They're 1:30 to 3. So if anybody would like to listen into those, just let us know, and we'll get you the Zoom link. And how the LRC works is CASB advocacy policy, and how they come up with that. It's like a 3-legged stool. They have the board of directors, and they have the delegate resolutions, and then they have the legislative resolutions committee. So all 3 of those play into what CASB does for the year for legislation. And the House and the Colorado Senate this year both have 2/3 majority for the Democratic Party. So they can pretty much do whatever they want. And so you're going, the first week, they had over 100 bills dropped. However, it's also a year that we do not have any money in the state with inflation. I mean, you guys have hit it at the grocery store and everywhere else. So has the state. So there's not going to be a lot of money. The JBC has cautioned everyone, and if you go onto the bill tracker on the Colorado CASB site, when you look at the tabs for the bill, you can look at the original writing, you can look at who's on it, who submitted it. Also look at the fiscal note. It's been kind of sneaky. What they've done in the past is a lot of times they will not add a fiscal note and it'll get passed thinking that it's not going to cost anything. However, the second year, there's a huge cost. So the JBC is kind of cracking down on that this year because we don't have the money to spend. Rural funding, they're really looking at that and they're going to try to pull it out, but Todd might have more information with the Rural Alliance, but it's scary. It's a real tight year. So Chrissy, I know you introduced the budget and it's going to be tight for us. It's going to be tight for the state too. So there's not going to be much more coming down either. So yeah, just going to have to tighten our belts. Okay, and I wanted to ask you, they asked me to get your input on this. It's House Bill 23-1003. It's the school mental health assessment. It has some good points to it, but it also has one that's very concerning for me. It creates a mental health assessment program that schools may opt into for students through in 6th through 12th grade. However, this is the catch that I'm concerned about. It allows a student 12 years or older to consent to be included in the program, even if their parents opt out of the program.
Away.
So this was, there was a gal that came on the Zoom and she works as a counselor. She was very emotional about this. However, me as a parent, I want to know the data. I want to know how many parents opted out and how many of those kids committed suicide or had issues. I want the hard facts before I start taking parent rights away from them. This is all parents within the state of Colorado. So to me, it's a real big issue. But I need to get your input to take back to CASB. So any other things you can add? It is just, to me, it was really scary when I brought it up. But they can pass it because they've got 2/3 on both the House and the Senate. So what do you think?
What's the rationale for a 12-year-old to be able to
Because
go through this without a
this
parental
one gal
consent?
says that she had a student that committed suicide or something. I don't know. We're gonna have to read more into the bill once it gets completely submitted, but it's kind of concerning for me. It's like, if you guys would look into that on the CASB side, again, it's House Bill 23-1003. Called School Mental Health Assessment. Look at it. Would you please email me your stuff? I need it before Friday or by Friday, because we're going to talk about this at our LRC meeting on Friday.
Can you email it or share a link to it, Pam, so that we can review?
Yes, I will. I'll go home and do that since you guys have a
And
link.
Pam, what do you want exactly from us? You want
It is-
like reasons about why we don't think it's okay or
Or
why
why
we
you
think?
do, but either one, where you're
Okay.
at,
Yeah,
but we kind of need to come as a board as a consensus so that I can say the Mancus board feels
Okay.
this,
okay,
okay?
okay. I mean, I don't know if we can share that now or not.
I don't think it's appropriate at all.
I don't really understand it, so I'll have to read it before I make a comment. It doesn't make any sense to me, so I don't really, but I don't feel like I can comment on something I haven't really read.
Okay, that's
What I will say is I want to read more about it, but
Absolutely.
generally, I am totally against superseding parent rights. I mean, there would have to be a clear reason why that would be something that I would agree with.
Yeah, and that was my question to them is, Raymond, I need the data. I need to see is how many kids is this impacting? Before I jump on this, so anyway, it's kind of scary. So will you please get your comments to me before Friday? And they are working, CASB is working on the problems with the executive session with the lawyer from Pagosa. So that we should see some legislation coming out to kind of hopefully stop that tactic.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so anyway, so if you ever want to listen in, just let me know and I'll get Matt to send you the
Would
link.
you say the number of that, what's the number of the bill?
1003.
She's gonna send us a link though.
The House Bill 23 and then 1003. Yeah, please go through and read that, and it will have, it wasn't complete, but it should be by now. That was a week and a half ago, so it should be complete by now. So you'll have the complete rationale of whoever submitted the bill. And I don't have that information on who submitted the bill. But anyway, that's it until we do meet again on Friday. Okay, so, oh, and I lost my agenda and all that.
CASB update.
Okay, Cassie, thank you. I'll get it up here. So do you have anything, Victor?
Yeah, the Colorado Association of School Board update. I just have a few areas. As everybody knows here, they're seeking to hire an executive director for CASB. And so I just want to share a little bit about where they are in that process. Executive Director Selection Committee has extended the application window in hopes of generating a broader and deeper pool of candidates to be considered. They have a short list from the first opening. They're going to keep that short list and they're going to reopen it and see who else they could add to that list. What they're looking at is closing date for this opening is January 23rd. So that's today. Date of the review of the shortlist applicants is going to be February 7th. And then date for in-person interviews and finalists will be February 16th. And they hope to make a decision and have somebody in place between that time and July 1st for the person to start work.
Okay, so they'll announce the finalists. And what was that date again?
February 16th, they'll do interviews with the finalists. I don't know that they'll announce it and say, here are all the finalists, but I hope they do. I mean, that makes sense.
Okay.
Then I just want to talk a little bit about, or at least make you aware of just some upcoming professional development opportunities for board members across the state. Board President Cafe is February 16th. The topic's going to be superintendent evaluation. I know that Pam, you go to that typically. I'm going to plan to go to that. I encourage everybody else as well, just to see what the latest is on superintendent evaluations. Then January 24th, which is tomorrow, we have the rural board member roundtable. There isn't a topic, it's really generated by the members. And I plan to attend that and then give an update at our next board meeting. I encourage again, if anybody has time, it's usually from 11 to 12. And then
11 to 12 or 11 to
Victor, do you have any topics that you are specifically bringing up?
yeah, I mean, I think the topics that are our reality right now has to do with retention, recruitment, and compensation for teachers. That's really the three topics that
Great.
we will continue to talk about. We did last year, and we'll continue to see if there's any new possibilities around how we can support teachers and support the work that we're trying to do in rural districts, because we're losing teachers in rural districts much faster than we are in urban districts. CASB Connection podcast is our podcasts that are located on the CASB website. This next podcast is really going to be about board governance. It's another topic that we've had discussions around. I encourage our board members to take a look at that. If you're not able to go when they have the podcast, they have recordings, so you can pick it up afterwards. So those are the four things I wanted to say.
I saw in our monthly bills, Chrissy, that we paid our CASB dues, I think, in January. Does that seem right? Or maybe, I don't know, but it's around $7,000 or something of that nature. Okay. Yep. I just think, are we utilizing all the services that CASB, are we utilizing everything we can, that $7K? No, I mean, I'm truly, I just think about, what more can we get from that $7,000?
The biggest thing was your policy updates always keep us up with the policies that are passed through the
Yeah.
legislation.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I was thinking about is, I know that, they run some statistical analysis, as well of course, as the Department of Education. But I was thinking about when we were talking about retention and things, and then we had our previous conversation about project-based learning and money spent and our difficulty when we have lack of being able to retain teachers and like the greater cost. Sometimes I feel like there's like costs that maybe they know about of like losing teachers. Like I think about the training and all of those. So I just ask is, does CASB have a resident expert on some of those analytics? Would be, I don't know, Matt Cook seems like the resident expert on everything, but it's just, I was like, oh, that's a lot of money that we spend. Like, let's make sure that we're getting like every dime from them. So I appreciate you going to those things.
Yeah.
I won't be able to make some of those, but I will be able to make a few of them.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's the previous board, previous boards were also concerned about that cost and whether it was worth it. And the superintendent always thought it was worth it just because of the update on the policies. That was huge. Otherwise you have to try to find yourself and they're passed so quickly,
Yeah.
that it's hard to keep up with. But that was the main thing that that Brian was interested in.
Yeah, I don't think it lacks value. I just say, let's get as much as we can
Yeah, I agree.
from that money.
I agree. That does help. All right, anything else for Victor? All right, Katie, you have the BOCES report?
Well, I don't, because our next meeting is February 15th. And sadly, I will not be able to make it because I'll be out of town. I do have a meeting with Royce on Thursday. It was going to be this morning and that didn't pan out. I will say that the BOCES board members did receive an email last week, and I shared this with Mr. Porter and Pam, that there has the superintendent, Mr. Tom Burris, at Cortez Montezuma School is proposed that that school district look at pulling out of BOCES. So I don't want to be an alarmist or anything like that, but it's something that is being considered. And it would be a long process. Royce has assured me because they have to petition the state.
Yeah, CV has to write off.
Correct, yeah, and they've, of course, have gone through this with Durango. And, so we won't, worry about it until we have to, but it's something that could be on the horizon. And it could be fun.
I don't see how they can provide the services required on their own.
It's huge. Yeah, that's a huge undertaking.
But
We'll wish them luck.
see,
Yeah, so that's happening. So I will, I'll have a conversation with Royce and then I'll be sure to follow up after the board meeting And I will do my best to inform you of kind of the state of affairs, even though I won't be in attendance.
Is it appropriate to send another school that somebody else could go in your place?
I don't
know
think it is
whether
appropriate.
BOCES does that or not. If they just assume we didn't and just sent the minutes to Katie, do you know?
I'll ask Royce. I'll ask.
I don't know whether that would be appropriate or not. though.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
I don't think it, I think it might not be, I mean, it's open to the public,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's true.
I'll ask, what,
Okay. Anything else for Katie? All right, superintendent's report.
The first thing I'd like to start with is, last Thursday was about the strangest Monday I've ever had. It was a very strange Monday for sure. So, when we built our schedule as a school district, we built in the possibility of 4 snow days.
Oh,
And so we've utilized 3. So, we have one more before we would have to look at either shortening spring break or going an extra day. Maybe that Friday in May, but we still have 1 left. And so I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board.
Does your
It's hard,
2 hour,
big for us.
does your 2 hour delays count into the hours?
They, I don't believe they do. And even if they do, we do have some miscellaneous hours because it is measured by minutes
Oh,
and then hours. So it's a
Okay.
total of 1,080 hours.
That's what I
for-
thought.
for
We're talking
secondary.
about student contact hours.
Yes, student
Yes.
contact hours.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then for those 2 days, I'd really like to just share my appreciation for the transportation department, the facilities team, and the communication team. I think they all did an exceptional job of working through those challenges. So, Travis's team, Bart's team, and then the whole communication team. I felt like we did a good job of keeping our community informed as to what we were doing.
I can
I agree.
test, I got a text, I got an email, and I got a voicemail.
The next thing I'd like to touch base on is, we're gonna be talking about the budget here in a few minutes, and one of the things that we discussed at our last meeting was reducing our ending fund balance to cover the costs or potential costs of pathways. And that was money that the school district is part of a $1.7 million grant with 3 other school districts, Dove Creek, Dolores, and Cortez. I attended a meeting on Thursday, and at that meeting, they did release the schedule for us to seek reimbursement for our pathway expenses. And those forms come out on January 25th, so in 2 days, and that process will be concluded about April 17th.
I didn't
So-
get that.
So just for Chrissy's watch, those dates again would be January 25th through April 17th. So I'm really glad to see those coming out. That really is information that should have been available to us in July, the timeline for the process.
Yeah.
That's really good. So we have that. The process is now moving, which is great. So that's really terrific. So we have about $800,000 between the 4 school districts to spend this year and $900,000 to spend next year. We're ahead of the others, so that may work out well for everybody because they'll be going through a lot of the initial costs that we went through this year through the grant. They'll be doing that next year. So I'm hoping to see that we'll get a larger allocation this year and a smaller one next year. And that also works for us well, because with the CDIP career certifications, we're gonna have somewhere between 150 students get career certifications like we've already started with the drone aviation license. Somewhere between 150 to 250 students get Colorado career certifications. In addition, we stood up 4 CTE pathways this year. Last year, we didn't have approved CTE pathways. In the past, we've had some agricultural ones, and I'm not sure of even longer history, but we're standing up 4 this year: healthcare, entrepreneurship, welding, and culinary. We've been doing welding and culinary, but now we're getting them compliant so we could seek reimbursement through CTE funds. Those funds will show up in October of next year. So either way, and that should be in the ballpark of about $200,000. And that's helps sustain those programs into the future. And those are annual allocations.
And we'll be adding the educator pathway.
And we'll be adding the educator pathway
Very exciting.
in the fall, and Dr. Maribel's been getting training on that. She's gonna fall in line with Durango School District. They started that educator pathway this fall through Fort Lewis College and the teacher cadet program. And so she's in contact with their director of curriculum who's teaching that course, as well as their superintendent, who also is a part-time instructor for that program as well.
And is Fort Lewis going to expand? Because I know they wanted to keep it small for this first year.
Yeah.
Will they expand over?
They're really good. They're really comfortable with that. We were contemplating us doing that this fall also, but we already had enough on our plate, so we decided that one could wait, especially with it being Dr. Maribel's first year with us, and she is one heck of a good catch for the school district. In addition to the CTE work, I'll be going to the annual CTE conference when this body meets again on February 6th, I believe. So I'll be joining virtually for the board work session on that day. In addition to the BOCES is the fiscal agent for the co-action grant. And so I've been talking a lot with Royce about that. And we also had a good opportunity to talk with her during a lunch break at the CASB conference as well. Her and I, as well as Brandy Durr, met last week for the mid-year check-in. So we had a really robust 90-minute conversation on how well the two organizations are working together. And I felt like we realized a lot of successes, and we also realized room for improvement between the organizations, and then also ways to improve outcomes for students. So we had a terrific conversation. I feel a lot of trust when I speak with Royce, and I feel a lot of trust when I speak with Randy. So I feel like those are really strong professionals, and I'm really glad that they're part of the San Juan BOCES, and I feel like they're a good partner for us. The next thing I wanted to touch base on is last week, the Universal Preschool Program rolled out. So this is a huge thing for the state of Colorado. It's a whole new department in the governor's cabinet. And the San Juan BOCES is our, I think they called it LOC, which is the coordinating body for an area. We're meeting with them on Monday, Tara, myself, and Chrissy, to kind of finalize how things roll out. People are utilizing the platform to get signed up now, and I'll be really curious to see from a financial perspective what that means for Mancos School District.
How are the parents finding out about the sign?
Well, it's been through the new department's communication, through CDE's communication, and through news. And I think they've had up to like 30,000 for people seeking, 3-year-old and 4-year-old education throughout the state.
Well,
So-
interesting, 'cause how many from Mancos?
For Mancos, I don't know how many yet. It is also, the Nest is participating, and also, so is Dragonfly. And it is for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and the 3-year-olds have to have a qualifying factor. and we would be the provider of those. And so we'll be learning more as that develops also. And that's, oh, and then the last thing I have is I just wanted to join the Mancus Early Learning Center and the elementary school and the secondary schools in celebrating the Board of Education on the Board of Education Appreciation Month. You know, those, our 3 levels really stepped up and went out of their way and really showed glowing appreciation for the Board of Education. And I think that just speaks to a really robust, holistic community we have here in Mancus School District. So congratulations, and you all are much appreciated.
Thanks.
And Madam President, that's my report.
Okay, I guess I should tell everybody too, the preschool, the elementary staff and the secondary staff all gave us cards and plaques and a lot. They've really stepped up. We do appreciate it as a board. It was really nice to know that your hard work is noted. So thank you to
Thank
the
you.
staff and the communities, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, finance report.
So tonight you guys will be approving the fiscal year 23 January final budget. We had our work session a couple weeks ago. I guess that's when that was, but really nothing has changed from what I presented to you guys that evening. There was a couple little tiny minor expenditures I kind of moved around, but nothing of any significance. So the one thing Todd did reiterate is we will be doing a beginning fund balance spend on that pathways, but it looks like we should be receiving that money this fiscal year. So on paper right now, it looks like we will deficit spend, but in the long run, we should not be doing that. But on paper, it will show that currently. But we're hoping we'll have that by the close of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed there. So tonight, basically, you're just gonna have 2 resolutions within your action items, and one will be the appropriation resolution. And then you'll have your beginning fund balance resolution there, laid out with the pathways for general fund, and then preschool, around $18,000 just for general operating expenses. They had a pretty good beginning fund balance, so we're trying to use that up. So there's less general fund money going over. And then lunch fund, there's a $14,600 deficit spend, but that is because we had unspent grant money from the year before that we have to spend this year. So that money rolled into beginning fund balance. So now we collected the money last year. It rolled into beginning fund balance this year. And so we have to spend it this year. So it's a deficit spend. So you're going to be seeing that in that or the beginning fund balance resolution. So as far as the budget, I mean, really, that's it. We just trued everything up, and unless you guys have any questions from our last time we talked, I think we're good to go on the budget part.
So I just have one question, and I think you told us this last time, but I seem to have forgotten it because I can't
That's
pull it out
okay.
of my head. It wasn't preschool, but I'm just thinking in terms of the pathways money. We're taking some money from the reserve right now to pay for the types of things that we're doing presently in the programs on pathways.
Correct.
We're planning to reimburse the reserve once you get the money from the state. Is that
That's
right, or
right.
from the grant?
Yes, and it is state money,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And it's running through BOCES, so we're gonna learn this week on how that process is gonna work. So I'm gonna have to request reimbursement for all that money. And so there's gonna be a bunch of hoops we're gonna have to jump through to get the money, but we're hoping we have it in this fiscal year. If we don't, you will see that deficit spend possibly on our books, but next year we will then collect the money to zero that out.
It'll go back into the reserve.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and to the point of the reserves, you know, over the last 18 months, our ending fund balance has grown from 2.1 million to what we show today of $2.7 million. So we've seen a good growth over the last 18 months. And so
What's the minimum that we are responsible to have in reserve?
Tabor, 3%.
And what do we have presently?
Oh, we're closer to about 28% or so, to do my math quickly in my head.
Yeah. We're in good shape.
Good shit, okay.
Yeah, so that's a really strong growth, which is gonna be important for us as we look at the retain and recruit elements going into the future. You know, whether or not the board will at some point make a decision as to what's the appropriate amount we want to keep in there, and then we can allocate others for either benefits like attainable housing or raises or whatnot.
The only other thing that we talked about in our work session was the capital project
That's
area.
a,
That's the other area that
Yeah.
we need to boost
Yeah,
up.
because there is no transfer going again.
Right.
I don't, that didn't
Yeah,
happen.
that's scary.
the reserve for that one is 104,000.
Right.
And we would really want to see that.
Right, yeah.
I would, you know, I'd like to see that at 1 million, you know,
Yeah.
because a new roof, could,
Uh-huh.
you know,
More than
a
that.
new,
Yeah.
yes, so that is a major, you know, a new bus could be 150,000 to 200,000. So that is one area that will, I think as we look at our budget for next year, what we're doing today just completes this year's budget. So now, starting tomorrow, Chrissy will start on next year's budget. And I hope we consider, you know, allocating some money from ending fund balance to go into capital reserve. Just so we're putting some money in savings for those things that we know we're definitely gonna have to spend.
What, maybe it was several years ago, but we used to have for bus replacement, we used to have a schedule where we put so many dollars aside for, I don't know, 3 years or 4 years, and then we bought the bus and then we'd start over again. That got dropped.
That was associated with the mill levy.
Yeah, so that
Was
the
it with
mill
the
levy that we currently have at $57,800 mill levy, 57,800, that's for technology and safety. So what we would do in the past years when we would buy a bus, we would tell Keith, okay, Keith, you don't get any money for technology out of that mill levy this year because it's going to the safety component and use it on the bus. And we would spend 57,800 on a bus out of one fiscal year. And then, and then we would use
That's
general
what-
fund money on the next fiscal year to
Okay.
pay the balance of it. So it would come out of 2 fiscal years, but we would use that mill levy money
Okay.
to help pay for part of that bus. But the buses are just getting so expensive, and we are going to need to look at one coming in the next year or two for sure. Yeah, and Bart's been putting together a nice sheet for us to kind of see what miles, the years, and what we have wear and tear. So we'll be able to present that to you when we start building budget next year, so you have an idea what we're looking at, because that is an expense coming up that we have to figure out somehow.
And the food service, Chrissy, the food service fund, the 395,000 plus, that, most of that has to do with individuals that haven't paid, or where's that?
Oh, no, that's their entire budget. So the food service has its own fund and it has its own budget. So that's all the revenue that's coming in and then all the food costs and salaries that are going out. So it's a balanced budget as well. So that money is like NSLP reimbursements
Okay,
from the state. It's prepaid lunch, people that are paying for their own lunches. It's a series of other grants that Janet has gotten. There's supply chain funds that she's using for all the milk this year, along with some other food expenditures. So it's basically grants. So she has a total of $395,000 coming in revenue, anticipated revenue. She does the best she can at
okay.
predicting what those, because she has no idea who's really gonna eat in the lunchroom every day.
Right.
So she does her best at trying to predict that. So that's its own fund, completely separated from general fund. And it operates the same as general fund, it's just the lunch fund.
And
That makes
then
sense.
free lunches, we still don't know how that's gonna impact that.
No, Janet's, she's dialed in, and so as soon as she has an understanding and all the facts, she will come to the board
Okay. That
and
sounds good.
give you guys a overview on that, because we
It's a
don't
big
know.
thing.
It's kind of like preschool, we're still learning. So, yeah.
You should have more information for that as you're building the budget for the forthcoming.
Mhm.
school.
But yeah, because that universal preschool will take effect next year,
Excellent.
and so
Yes.
will the food service.
That'll be nice then.
Yeah, both of those will be
But they
there.
still haven't put any of that legislation actually together.
Right. So we'll see, but that's what they're telling us now, is we should be using that when we build budgets for next year. So we'll see. None of us know what's happening. So we're learning.
Everything is very complicated.
I know, there's all kinds of layers to everything. So that's our budget. You're also gonna see in the action item a salary schedule for substitute pay. Since minimum wage increased, I needed to adjust those in there, so that's why that got put in there. And then, of course, there's investment reports in the second year or second quarterly report in there. If you guys have any questions, let me know on that. But really, I think that's it. Unless you have any questions, Juan?
Any questions for Chrissy? All right, thank you, Chrissy. All right, discussion items, superintendent evaluation and rating. Okay, so we met, was it 2 weeks ago?
Sure.
I think it was 2 weeks ago. Anyway, I went over the superintendent evaluation. Oh, shoot. I don't know where mine is. And Mr. Corder came out very well.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. It was a really pretty intense process, but I think it was better done this year than it was last year. And Mr. Carter came out at a strong command. Yeah, with a score of 50.6 out of 72, which is strong command. He got a couple more points. He would have had distinguished command. So he was very highly rated by this board. So anybody want to climb in? I need the commentary. And that was on my desk and I think it's still there. Maybe. Hold on.
Need to go into any more.
No, I just think that we are so grateful to have Mr. Cordray at the helm. And we're just, it's really, as a board member, it's very exciting to see what has been implemented and to have a glimpse of what the future looks like as well. And to feel that we have someone who is ready to take those next steps and really get our school to that next level. So we're excited and we're super grateful.
So we are gonna put it on we'll put the form and the results on the website.
They've been on the website for about a week,
Great,
so. yep,
great. And the commentary is on there, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would encourage board members, the public, staff, everyone to go on the website and read the commentary. We kind of identified what our superintendent did really well and what we'd like to see next year. So we thought I thought it was well done, so.
Deal.
And so I think for February, then I'll be receiving the goals for the year. So the Board of Education will be providing the school district goals and we'll be adopting that. And then we'll also then be ratifying the contract in February as well.
All right. Emergency management process.
So for this one, this is some work that was due to the Board of Education. This came out of a challenge we had in November And we heard some feedback from staff that they would like to see the district evaluate the emergency management process and protocols. And so the administrative team led by our director, Travis Greenlee, led the process, and we've updated our process and protocols. And we have that team here, and they'll speak to the work that was done and what's before you today.
Where would you like me to stand?
Come up here, just because then you'll be on the film and
You're
Emily can
good
see
up
it.
there.
And you can sit down if you want to bring up a chair.
I talk better when I'm standing, so if you guys don't mind. Yeah, so as Mr. Cordray said, this, from input from the staff as well as, input from the board, we went into a process of looking at making an addition to our district response protocol, to better be able to communicate with staff, during a time of a possible threat or, a concern that we were investigating. And, this was a joint project, where I had, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Rittner, and Mr. Cordray, helping me as we built this. And so in your packets, I believe, you received this poster. On one side, it is, the response protocol that we already have in place. And Mr. Rittner did a lot of work to kind of make that unique to Mancos with adding our logos. And so this is something that moving forward will be blowed up, and it will be placed in all of our classrooms to replace the ones that are already there that are the more generic. But on the back side is the addition that took place to our response protocol. And it is just a lower level communication with our staff, where when there's something going on on campus, they know it, they see it. And so this is a way to include them to where they know what's going on, but where they can also be an assistant to us as we're going through the process. So anytime that the safety team becomes aware of a suspicion of threat or a concern of threat towards the Mancos School District, we are going to investigate. And it has the safety and security team listed on there. When that comes to us, the process begins immediately, either through text, through phone calls, of trying to gather all the information we can of what's been brought to us, as well as we are bringing in outside sources, law enforcement. It could be counselors that may be able to give us input, further insight to what we're looking at. And that conversation starts to happen. Once we have gathered all of the relevant information that we can, we make a decision if we need to activate one of our standard response protocols that are listed on the poster side, if we need to go into hold, secure, in place, lockdown, evacuate, shelter. If one of those, if one of those aren't warranted at that time, then that is when we will activate this new communication protocol. And it goes through our reverse 911. So just like you said, you received a phone call, an email, this will be a text that will go to all staff members. And it will be the initial text there. That is what it'll say. It'll say that we have been, a school-related concern has been brought to our attention, and we have begun to investigate that. We're also at that time asking all staff members to have their radio on and with them and to be on duty. So some staff members will have a scheduled duty. Members that don't have a scheduled duty, we're asking them to be on duty as well. So they're more aware of their surroundings, more aware of our students and student behavior. Even if it is their break time or their planning time, they're going to be called on duty to where they're out and about and we're paying attention to our surroundings. That is where they're able to partner with us and possibly give us information that helps us in conducting that investigation.
as we go through that investigation, we'll determine if an additional level of response is required. And if it is, that communication, that'll be the communication. It'll come through our system to either go into lockdown, lockout, secure in place, evacuate, depending on what the situation is. If we come to the conclusion that there is not a viable threat towards Mancos School District, our staff, our students, then we will send out a closing text. And it will again be what is said there, that we have concluded and determined that there is not a viable threat towards Mancos schools. And then we will hold a debriefing. So this goes kind of with a common timeline that we went through the school day. The debriefing, it'll be a stand-up debrief that'll be held in the cafeteria following the school day at 4:30. Now that timeline could change a little bit depending on the situation and what has been brought to our attention. But anybody that would like to attend, they can come and we will share all information that we can share with our staff to let them know what has happened and what we went through that day. I do want to mention that Mancos School District does have an emergency plan and process in place, but it is something that we're working on updating and revising. And not only the superficial updates because names needed to be changed because we have different people in different positions, but also some bigger, more meaningful changes. As Mancos School District changes, then I believe our emergency plan needs to change with it to suit what Mancos School District is right now. And I'm actually working on this process in all three of the departments that I'm leading. So changes that I'm making, and these changes as well as other changes in the departments that I'm leading they're being influenced by a few different things. First of all, research of best practices. We're looking at what schools of excellence are doing, what are the best practices, and then also input from staff, parents, community, the board, and we're bringing all of that together. And one thing that I am doing is I'm putting advisory committees together, and the one that I'm working on the most right now, I guess, is our Safety and Security Advisory Committee, and it'll be made up of staff members, of community members, and parents. So as we are revising and updating our emergency plan, we're getting input from all of our stakeholders to go into the building of that. And that should be rolled out February. We have a large number of staff that have showed interest and that I've reached out to. I'm just looking for a few more community members, a few more parents to be able to sit in on that advisory committee as well, so that we can start that process moving forward. Did I miss anything?
No, I just want to give a lot of credit to this team because we talk a lot about moving forward and we always should. But this year we need to move back so in some cases and make sure that we have solid foundations for things that may not have been there, and that's become apparent and really highlighted by having a lot of new staff. And we get to a point where we're like, well, how do we do that? Oh, we're not sure, actually. We don't have a real solid sense of that. Do we have it documented somewhere where we can hand that off? And I think our staff deserves some credit too for being vocal about it and letting us know when things like this come up. Do we know how to do it? Are we doing a good job? Yeah, but do we have it really explicitly stated somewhere to hand to staff so they can feel, confident we do? So a lot of that work's happening. And just give a ton of credit to Travis and Josh too for helping us get that stuff together and really solidified. So our staff gave us great ideas, and that's where that came from.
Cool. Mr. Henley, do you have a timeline for when you should have that closer to finished product for the board to review?
Yes, and I have a really ambitious goal of mid-April, and then a more realistic goal of end of May. And so, but definitely want in each of the departments that I lead, where those operating manuals, those procedures and processes are in place and updated moving into our next school year.
Thank you.
And Mr. Greeley, when, I know that throughout the year you have drills that are conducted district-wide. Can you just give us a lowdown on these hold, secure lockdowns? How many of those happen throughout the year?
So our goal going into this year was to have a minimum of 2. And we did have one lockdown drill in the first semester, and we're going to have another one in the second semester, at least one more. And so that is our goal. And then we have fire drills, we are a monthly deal, so.
Molly, did you have a question?
A comment more than a question, actually. I just wanted to say that I appreciate you bringing back into the fold the fact that we do have a crisis response plan that's much more robust. And I would just caution that we make sure that this new document that was drawn up and meant to be more of a succinct, funneled, kind of drilled down step by step, definitely be rolled into that crisis response plan. So it's kind of like the fuller version versus this is what the one sheet, like you said, this is what we really need in order to execute when an emergency comes about. So thank you for the clarification, because I was looking for the bigger plan initially, just in my head. And so I've made a note for May, and I think I have that correct, to come back and look for that to be in place. And I would just also say, Travis, that since we're getting ready to have a meeting with the town, that I'd be also happy to help if need be, or offer or opine as necessary.
Thank you.
And Travis, would you speak to your thoughts around SRO and what that process is gonna look like as we, as a school district and community, evaluate that?
Yeah, and so that is actually gonna be agenda item number 1 for the advisory committee and myself. Because there's 2 sides, 2 big, very loud sides to that. And so I want input from all of our stakeholders, and I want us to really look into the pros, the cons, and what that means. But then also, if the decision is made to have an SRO at Mancos School District, what does a Mancos School District SRO look like? What is the job description? How do they work with the school? How do they work with law enforcement? Because I think that the SRO, if we put one in place, it will be unique and different than it is in any other school, because it will be Mancos School District SRO. And so, but again, that's number 1 agenda item on that, for that advisory committee, is getting input from all of our stakeholders and seeing if that is what's best for Mancos School District, and if so, what does that look like for Mancos School District?
And for your information too, the Capitol, they've been talking about SROs in the school districts in Colorado. And there's probably gonna be a legislation coming down the line. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I was just warned that that's just a big talking point this year.
You mean funding?
I don't
Or
know if funding or
mandatory?
mandating, but yeah, so that's, yeah.
Sorry.
Two different things.
Yeah, no, and
The Capitol doesn't necessarily fund
No,
anything.
unfunded mandates.
yeah,
Mandate.
That's the t-shirt.
yeah, no, and it is, if you Google SRO, there is a lot of conversation, and specifically in Colorado, that is going on about that right now, so.
And their training, I think there's a group, because they're trained very differently than a policeman would. Our town least it's a whole different thing, like you're saying, it's more drilled down for schools and working with kids. You know, and realizing who they are and getting on their level. So anyway, that's just, I just
The
thought. that was
focus and
interesting.
priority is different for each of those, and it should be and needs to be. And
Right.
so that's part of the importance. If we do decide that we want an SRO, what does that look like for Mancos School District? So.
You know, one thing I would just like to add to that is while it's a complex conversation, a conversation where you're weighing safety and liberty in the same conversation, as a, you know, Mancos School District and from everything I've seen of Mancos community, we're a very pro law enforcement
Yes.
community and society. And we have a very strong sense that safety and security are values for us. We definitely have value, safety, security as well.
Yeah, and so very thankful for our law enforcement as it is right now even. I mean, they are a huge partner, and they are on campus, helping us immediately when we need their help and when we need their input and their guidance, and their support. So, yeah, I am very pro law enforcement, and I believe we as a district are, and a community are as well, so.
I just see. Any other?
I want to just reiterate though that they have to fit culturally. So what we're talking about is not just bringing a law enforcement officer into the district, it's bringing a, you know, one, does it fit from a financial perspective and does it fit from a cultural perspective? There's just, I appreciate the conversation around the pluses and the minuses, Travis, because I do think that through that discovery process, not only will we learn more, but we're also going to be able to reiterate or share more through that process of what does it really mean? Because I think people make assumptions around SROs that are not necessarily always accurate, including I myself have made those assumptions. So I think being as open and transparent and inviting people in to that conversation is absolutely the right path to take. This isn't going to happen overnight. And if and when it does happen, it's going to happen very carefully and in sync with the culture of the district that we are building upon. We talked about trauma informed and many initiatives that have been included within our strategic plan, and this needs to be able to walk alongside that and not be scary. I mean, I hate to say it anymore, frankly, but there's more to it.
Yeah, well, Emily, you brought out the training. The training is very, very different. The SEL, everything is included in that. You're talking to children, you're not talking to adults, you know, without handcuffs. You know, you don't do that type of thing with kids.
We're a long way off. So.
It'll just be interesting to see what the state comes up with. So we'll keep you informed.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your work. Thank you to your team.
Thank you.
All right, board linkage. Judy, did you want to take off on that?
Sure. Okay, so I think we needed to kind of reiterate a couple major points of the board's plan to do a better job communicating to the community. And we have created a board linkage plan. Meaning that we, each one of the board members has been tasked to reach out to a community entity and to hold a meeting. So the chronology of what that looks like is January, this Thursday, the 26th. I will be at the Mancos Public Library Board meeting. Included in that, I've given an example of what this slideshow will look like. This is for everyone. This is just a handout, but I will be throwing up a slideshow that basically does introduction about Mancos School District, introduces the board members. I will have accompanying me, Mr. Cordray, and Ms. Farrar. Mr. Corday is going to, I'll be speaking for the board, and so you'll see a slide that talks about basically CASB's tenets of like, what does a board member do? And I pulled out the ones that were specifically for our being a conduit to community conversation. And so, and then then also talking about some of our major initiatives, including the strategic plan, which also talks about one of those specific domains. Number 3 is the community connections. And so this is embedded into our strategic plan. We will have handouts for the board members at the library, as well as anybody else who attends the meeting, because it is a public meeting. And then we'll talk about portrait of graduate and student PBL and student-centered learning and pathways. So Ms. Farrar will be there to speak to PBL. And then Mr. Cordray will be there to speak to pathways. And so you'll see slides accordingly on that. And then we did talk about bringing up a conversation about our current challenges, including retention and compensation. So I did put a couple slides from that presentation that we just had. And then finally, a closing slide that talks about like kind of moving forward, what our future conversations with our major, with folks like Mancos Public Library. So this is specific. So collaboration in the secondary schools, future meetings, regular correspondence. A couple other things that we'll be doing at that linkage meeting is getting a sign-up sheet. We talked about having regular communication with the outside of the school community. And so we'll be having folks sign up for, I think we talked about quarterly communications for like a broader communications about the community, like maybe events and things of that nature. But it's also a way for us to give information out, but also to receive information and invite more of the public into to our conversations. And so we have, so I said it will be at the Mancos Public Library this Thursday, 6 p.m. We'll send out I'll send that to you to broadcast through the school communication channels this week. And then we have, Emily will be at the town board. She'll have something similar. She might, mix it up a little bit. Folks, each one of you can use this template or kind of, riff off something like this. And then we have Victor, who's going to be speaking to a student group in March. Dolores State Bank and Pam have a date in April. And then Tim will be speaking to the chamber. So if you have any comments on the slideshow, or if you have any concerns or commentary, but that's kind of what it was going to look like. We really were only going to do about 10 minutes of presentation and then, a Q&A at the end. And so, yeah.
And this is 33, this is your agenda, right?
Yeah, this is pretty close to the agenda. I think I kind of noodled with it a little bit, but it's close to that. Yeah. We talked about, I think originally we discussed talking about being an innovative district, but I think we kind of decided that maybe PBL and maybe having more conversation around the strategic plan would be more meaningful. So.
Yeah, gotta go. Good night.
So anyway, that's kind of the gist. what's going on.
That's great. You've done all the work. The rest of us just have to.
Well, like I said, I will send you the slideshow. If you want me to amend the slideshow, I could easily, you could edit, you know, give me edits on something of this nature, and I can just plug it in or whatever, or send it to you to edit, whatever you guys like to do. Again, you don't have to have a slideshow. You can just hand this out to them, and as a sense of talking points, just to kind of give people an overview. I think we were gonna put together like some Mancus swag, or little handouts, whatever we can find, to promote the school. And also there'll be handouts of the strategic plan, sans the rubric. There won't be a rubric on there. It'll just be the narrative. So it's not kind of in the weeds, and then also Pathways catalog.
Cool. Questions about linkage? Hey, Katie, you did an amazing amount of work there. Thank you.
Oh, no, I pilched a lot of the slides off other people's stuff, so I was grateful for their work.
Well, it works. Are you wanting to leave?
I gotta go.
All right. Any other questions about linkage?
No.
All right, let's move on. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm excited to get this going. I think it's gonna be really helpful. Maybe create some buzz talk around town.
I think it'll be fun.
All right, so we have retained recruitment presentation.
So at the work session, the board received a really good presentation developed by Chelsea Linders and myself. And it's the same presentation that the District Accountability Committee will see tomorrow. And then it'll be before the staff at a staff meeting, so that they can understand the scope of work that's going on about studying retention and recruitment, and really how that interplays with compensation. We know this is a huge conversation for Mancus School District, as well as the other 177 school districts in the state. At the presentation 2 weeks ago, the board thought it'd be really helpful to collect information for the different audiences, whether it's the Board of Education, the DAC, the staff, or the community. And they charged us with building a survey, and that's in your packet here as well. A survey as to what's important, a survey as to what next steps would be, a survey as to how someone could participate and support this really important work. I have a feeling this is going to turn out to be a big thing for our district. I think it's going to also influence the other two districts in Montezuma County, because I feel like we're a community in Montezuma County, and as one school district goes, I think the others can benefit from their work. So I have a sense that there might be a broader audience for this as well.
Is the DAC going to hear this tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, the DAC gets it tomorrow. I'll be speaking when I'm meeting with the leadership team. Tomorrow is our monthly meeting with the department directors and the admin team. And so we'll be getting that on the district-wide comprehensive professional development schedule for when the staff can see it also.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll send out a copy to staff this evening in case they want to just review the study that was conducted.
Mr. Cordia, do you think that this questionnaire would be appropriate to take to the linkage meetings?
Yeah,
Okay, then let's do that.
yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So Todd, are we gonna use that questionnaire for all the different groups, or is it gonna change a bit?
It turned out to be, I thought it might need to be individual per group, but as it was developed, it really came to be something that would work for all groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, I personally thought there was gonna have to be a specific one per group, But as it was developed, it really, I felt like it worked for all groups.
Yeah, because it's pertinent information that we need to get from all.
Well, and as we've talked about before, there's very few people in this community who hold one role in this community, right? There's like teachers that are parents, that are community members, that are, that are at the bank, that are at the library, so.
Business owners.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. All right, any other discussion around new retainer recruitment? All right, so we'll move on to new board member development. Emily, do you want to take the lead on this?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Just a summary, we at our CASB board meeting and retreat started to have conversation around, and some of this was brought about because of Victor and I joining the board and Katie's prior experience joining the board during, and then going right into COVID and needing a little bit more clarification around exactly what the board means. What does it mean to join the school district board of directors? What does it mean in terms of how long is your term? Who are you serving with? What are our policies meaning? What are our expectations? And although we've had a lot of great mentorship and handholding, we had never really gone so far as to develop any kind of structure or documentation for individuals to be able to reference, or even for people to be able to view in consideration of running for the board. So we decided to put together an onboarding type document, which will go over our focus areas, our expectations, our policies, if you will, those things that we find ourselves reaching for or referencing most often to help launch individuals into the role of a board member. So we've started that process. I think that we included it with the board packet this month. And there's still work to be done, but it will come together and hopefully accumulate over the next couple, 3-4 months, and will be available so that when individuals are considering running for the board next year, which will elections take place in November, perhaps over the summer, people will be able to reference or ask for this, or we can share it out and give people an idea of what it really means. And then of course, those new board members in November would have the document for their use and perusal as they join the team. So that's kind of where we're at, what we've done so far and where we're headed. Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. I like the booklet you put together. Jim brought in today, he couldn't sleep the other night, so he brought in board norms that are rough draft.
Yay, Tim.
So he's got our part almost done. So yeah, and all of you know, board focus area. You know what area you're responsible for?
Oh, yeah, I'm collecting all of the stuff at the end, including all of the, the materials. I do know what I'm doing. It just doesn't sound like I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yes.
Victor, do you know which part you have?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm working.
All right, good. Well, we've got our time frame and stuff, and we'll get those to you, Emily, and you can just add it to this booklet. I think it's gonna be very helpful. So people know what they're getting into.
Well, and I think we do need to set aside some time to like review it in its entirety, like as
Right,
things
for
get
sure.
collated together. So I don't know exactly. So maybe we do that. I think my deadline was March, if I recall, and so,
Ours was March.
April.
April.
oh, April, okay.
No, I'm saying, I think the deadline was March. So I think we wanted to review it in April or May prior to our summer retreat, because summer is when people would possibly be thinking about running for the school board.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I know you needed on the email we got, anyway, our board norms were due to you in March.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
But Tim has given to us now, so maybe at some point, at some point, we need to give him feedback. If there's any, so he can finalize this.
So you
Well,
just,
Tim and I need to finalize the board norms,
Oh, okay.
and we'll add those in, and then we'll get, once we get the whole book together, like Emily was saying, in a retreat this summer, let's go over the whole thing, make sure it's what we want.
If you have any input, let me know.
I guess my question is at any point, does the board give you input about these norms?
yes, we said
Sure.
in April, or,
Yes, when we get, yeah, right at the end.
In April,
Yeah,
when it's all put
yeah,
together?
we'll look through all of it.
Okay,
Yeah, so we can give input to the other sections as well. All right, boy, we've got a lot going on. Okay. All right, policy IG curriculum development.
I can speak to that if
All
you wish.
right.
So there's really two pieces. This item came up as part of the superintendent evaluation as well. As it referred to, the Mancos School District has a policy IG on the website, which is all about curriculum development. And that policy is really a policy that is really followed by all 178 school districts. And it was really it is a policy that is generic in that sense. And it also is a policy that speaks to the importance that the Board of Education is the body that is the final approval in the process of curriculum approval. So we're in the process as a school district of receiving READ Act funds. And in that process, it brought to light at the elementary level through the work they're doing, the need for having a new ELA curriculum at the elementary level. And so since we're going through a process of evaluating and then hopefully eventually adopting new curriculum as well as long as the budget can afford it, it gave us the opportunity to test policy IG. And in looking at policy IG, we realized, as I just mentioned, it was generic. It didn't speak to the alignment of curriculum throughout a whole school district, which is more important for a school district like ours, which is on one campus. So how does elementary ELA curriculum directly impact middle school and high school? And that's especially important for a district our size. Secondly, it didn't speak to the major focuses of a school district. So as a school district, we articulate the importance of project-based learning and being trauma-informed in our strategic plan. And this policy IG doesn't address that. So that was some really good feedback that I've received from the board, and that was really helpful. I planned to bring this to an admin team last Tuesday, but we were home because there was a lot of snow on the ground. And so it'll be going before the admin team for discussion on the 31st. And then they'll be taking it back to their schools to get feedback and also input on what would be appropriate actions for how do we make policy IG more Mancos specific. So we'll be bringing back policy IG for board review in February. And so board can then see what IG looks like from a Mancos school district lens.
Perfect.
And that's where we're at right now. And I don't know if that's comprehensive, but that's where we're at right now.
and Mr. Corder, would that include, because I know that the policy asks for curriculum review committees, including what I saw that the Mancos was doing had administrators and teachers, but there was elements of the policy that were not in alignment with what we were doing. So parents and accountability members or anybody else deemed appropriate by the board to review it would be, we're thinking about those pieces as well.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, thank
excellent.
you. Yes, we'll make sure that it's all compliant, or if it's not compliant, because it's not appropriate for some reason,
Sure.
that it's changed,
I understand.
and that's what will come before the board.
So is IG
yes.
a local?
No, IG is more of a
To the state.
standard, as I read it, and it feels very generic.
Okay, but is it a state statute?
Oh, yes, there's a state
It's a
statute tied to
required,
it.
it's
Okay,
required.
okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought, that's what I was,
It's not a recommended, it's a required.
At the bottom of the
Okay.
I don't believe I have that statute with me, I mean, that policy with me right now, but at the bottom of it, I'm sure there's a couple of CRS citations. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
yeah. that's
State
what I was
statute.
thinking.
That's
So-
legit.
Yeah, so if you change it, what do we have to do?
Well, that's where we just write it, make sure that we're not violating any of those statutes.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's really where our attorney
So
was
we have
coming
to
to
change
play.
our practice to understand for the ones.
We do,
Yeah, okay.
and we can, and when we do change it, we'll make sure to have attorney review on it, to make sure that we don't find ourselves not compliant with
Right.
statute.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's.
I was just clarifying, Todd, with Tim a little bit. There's the statute and then there's the process of really going through and making some determinations of the appropriate curriculum. When we think in terms of elementary and then the K-12 system, we're in control of the process, but there's a statute that we have to make sure that we meet.
Right,
But
So we
the,
can
but
word
the
it,
actual
we can word
process
it however we
can
want, as
change
long as
based
we
on what
comply
we
with the
want.
statute.
right,
That process to be,
right.
as long as it meets the statute.
Right.
And that's what makes our policy process so challenging, that one policy has 5 laws tied to it. So that's what makes our policy process for school districts so challenging. And we have about 300 policies that are required. So you can.
And that's not the local ones.
Yeah. Okay,
All
so
right.
All right.
that's where we're at.
All right. Strategic plan, so, we already had a work session on 3B. Is there any other additional discussion would you guys like to do on 3B? Oops.
No, we're just approving it, correct?
No, we're gonna
No,
approve.
This
Oh,
is
3B,
2B.
sorry.
Yeah, 3B is the one that we did.
You might just want to read that
Portrait of
statement
graduate.
for public record.
Yeah, I think,
Okay, I
Just,
can
just
do.
what's on the agenda.
The Board of Education is following a governance process that evaluates the Macon School District at every meeting through the strategic plan. This process ensures school district growth and focus on educational outcomes. And the objective 3B is Macon School District will implement a portrait of a graduate, student-centered model in all classrooms.
Great.
So that's what we were dealing with. We had a great, very robust discussion about that, so.
so,
Lots more work to do on that.
right, so can we just kind of summarize just
You bet.
what that discussion was about so that people have a general idea of what we discussed in work session?
You bet. You would like to do that?
I will attempt to do that. I think that we have begun a lot of work on PBL. I think that our discussion really rotated around where are we and where do we need to go next? And again, we looking at what's the ultimate goal we want our kids to be exposed to, act like, or be presented with as it relates to PBL. And I think the board had some concerns about where we were right now as we look at what are the next steps. So I think we asked Todd and his administrative team to really take a look at where we presently are and to come back to the board with a plan after discussion with his administrative team, get some feedback from key stakeholders, as it relates to where we are and where we need to go and help the board know what are the next steps to move PBL forward. Because we feel generally it's at a standstill. Anybody want to add to that or?
It's a fair assessment.
We've made a considerable financial investment into project-based learning. I think the board feels very confident as a kind of as the baseline for how we are teaching our kids. But I think the board has had discussion that we don't have full implementation district-wide, and there's unevenness to it. And so, yeah.
And we did acknowledge that because of COVID, because of new staff, it's been a hard process. So
But we are committed to
we
that
are behind
process.
in our timeline, but that's okay. We can redo, and we do need to redo the timeline this summer. To kind of come up with that, but PBL is still very important. I think it's, as a board, we all agree that PBL is what we like to see in our schools. And we're going to go forward with it.
Great.
All right. Now we have action, board action to accept the objective report. Now this report is objective 2A. Somebody want to read it and motion?
That in front of me.
I'm gonna say objective 2A is teachers will practice classroom management techniques and routines that support the needs of all students using trauma-informed practices and social emotional learning. It's a board action to accept the report that we got from Dodie, is it Shepherd? And where we're at with it. We didn't come to a partially proficient or anything. We just know that there's a great deal of ongoing work that needs to be done.
I guess that was one of my questions. I don't know when to ask that question to Todd. It's what should we do about the status of this 2B?
Yeah, I think, based upon the work and where we're at, I think it's understood that it's approaching standard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the board can accept objective 2A, the report and the associated information as approaching standard.
Okay, and then can we just put that in the document at some point and
Just.
because right now it says to be announced.
Right, well, we can just make the motion. I would make a motion. We accept objective 2A as approaching standard.
There you go.
I'll second that.
I'll second
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to accept objective 2A as approaching standard. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, Heather, call the question, please.
Okay. Emily, Cahill Volpe.
No, Katie Cahill,
Cahill Volpe.
Katie Cahill Volpe says aye.
Emily, I'll wait for you. Katie Cahill Volpe.
Aye.
Pam Coppinger.
Aye.
Tim Spencer.
Aye.
Howard. Victor Figueroa.
Aye.
Emily. Hutchinson.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, action items.
And then what I would just share though is all the work that the board does in approving these is all on the school district website under the board tab. So since we've been going through this process, they're all there in
Okay.
case anyone's really curious and want to see all these reports and the really good information that's associated with them. It's there for parents and the community as well as our staff.
That's awesome. So we encourage everyone you know, all the parents you know, all your community members to get on the website and read through it. Lots of information. Okay, consent motion. Oh, consent motion.
Make a motion to consent to A through E.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve action items A through E. Discussion? Okay, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Holby,
Aye.
Pam Carpenter,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
And I make a motion to authorize of a portion of the beginning fund balance as authorized by Colorado statute, whereas Colorado Revised Statutes 2244-105 states that the budget duly adopted pursuant to this article shall not provide for expenditures in the fund transfers or reserves in excess of available revenues of the beginning fund balance, and whereas the Board of Education may authorize the use of a portion of the beginning fund balance in the budget stating the amount to be used, the purpose for which the expenditure is needed, and the district's plan to ensure that the use of the beginning fund balance will not lead to an ongoing deficit. And whereas the Board of Education has determined the beginning fund balance is sufficient to allow for the one-time expenditure, and the action will not lead to an ongoing deficit, now therefore be it resolved, in accordance with Colorado Revised Statutes 2245-105, the Board of Education authorizes use of a portion of the fiscal year 23 beginning fund balance for the following funds. In the general fund for a total amount of $200,093, the funds will be used to offset Pathways expenditures until co-action grant revenue is received: drones, business, welding, culinary, and healthcare. Preschool fund for a total amount of $18,855 for operating expenses. For the lunch fund for a total of $14,641.71. The funds are a carryover from unspent grant money collected fiscal year 22 of $7,552.78 from the supply chain assistance grant and $7,088.93 from the Colorado Health Foundation mini grant. Be it further resolved, the use of this portion of the beginning fund balance and the general fund for the purposes set forth above will not lead to an ongoing deficit and will not need to be corrected in future years.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to accept the resolution authorizing the use of a portion of the beginning fund balance as authorized by Colorado statutes. Any discussion? Okay, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Holby,
Aye.
Pam Carpenter,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. We skipped F.
No, that's what we just did.
No, F is a updated substitute
No,
salary schedule.
G is the final budget, which I have next.
Yeah.
Are you gonna read?
Yes,
Okay, you're gonna do that one now?
yeah, that was in order, the order of our agenda.
Oh, I had it the opposite.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I make a motion that be resolved by the Board of Education of the Memphis School District RE6 in Montezuma County that the amount shown in the following schedule be appropriated to each fund as specified in the January budget for the ensuing fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. From the general fund, $9,191,980.85. For the preschool fund, $342,635.20. From the food service fund, $395,422.73. From the bond redemption fund, $758,163.47. For capital reserve projects, $132,809. For the people activity fund, $246,892. For a total appropriation of $11,067,903.20.
I'll second
I
that.
second that.
I've got a motion and 2 seconds
I'm
to
ready.
accept the schedule to be appropriated for each fund as specified in the January budget. Discussion? Okay, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Holby,
Aye.
Pam Carpenter,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, then we have H.
No,
I just have
I don't have an
G.
H, I don't have an H on.
No,
there.
I-
You're the only one with H. I don't know.
H is the final budget.
That's what we just did.
You guys didn't do the updated substitute salary schedule.
That was
Yes, we did. That was in
Yes, we
consent.
did.
E is consent and substitute benefits. we approve bills. We have to recommend you send resignation. I know you have something different than everybody else does.
Chrissy's getting it, hold on. That's what we're missing. So. Yeah.
That was it, that's
Kathy
all right.
So let's just do that.
Yes, because we already approved the change. That's not all I'm saying, that that's different.
I do.
You do, uh-oh.
Um, Very importantly, I read. I would. I wouldn't read it.
So, do you have it for the reference section 12, 245, 2? That's what they reference in that statement.
But I would say content.
We brought up, something at the superintendent. That I'd like us to think about and decide on at next meeting is whether our portion of the strategic plan for our, as a professional development. Correct. All
This is why.
mandatory hours of what, how it's created, a little bit of history, a little bit of how we're using it, and then how we use it to inform, and then how we will take that information and then apply it to our meeting in the summer when we review it. Because I think excellent opportunity for us to get back, with and so I think this would be a great way for us to give information. If Mr. would like to add on his piece of what the strategic plan means for the staff or whatever, I would, of course, welcome that. I think like to see us work and school years to have that feedback.
Next month, we have section number 6. And we'll, yeah. And on the 20th is President's Day, so we won't be here on.
Emily, what time is your meeting with the town? Do you have a time on that?
Sorry, I can't hear you guys at all. Keith's working on it, but it's all either garbly or silence, so I can't hear anything.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, well, We'll fill her in.
Sounds good.
It's really.
All right, yeah, so next meeting is, our work session is gonna be February 6th at 5. February
I don't have
13th,
that at
just-
all on my calendar.
You what?
I didn't have that on my calendar.
If you have this one, do you have this one?
I do,
Okay.
I usually it pops up on my calendar
Oh,
for some reason, I mean, when it's put into the system.
anyway, I could go off to this one.
I still have it at 6 o'clock on this.
All right,
So it's a-
if there's nothing else, right, we stand adjourned.
Joe.
Good
I will
job, guys.
not get that.
Bye all. Thank you.
Bye.